Hi, this is Evangelist Chester again of Rivers of Living Water, and this week we're going to talk about Naomi. And the title is going to be Pain with a Purpose, with a subtopic, Don't Take It Personal. Again, Pain with a Purpose, with a subtopic, Don't Take It Personal. We're not going to go all the way back into the history all over again because we have the lesson of Ruth last week to go into the history if you want to go back. Um, the first 5 verses deals with all the things that came against Naomi, or rather that she felt came against her: the death of her husband, the death of her 2 sons. And Naomi at this time is feeling frustrated. And can you imagine how she may have felt in making the decision? They made the decision to go into the land of Moab, wondering, did I make the right move? Was it something that I've done? Am I still in the will of God? And I believe that most people, if not all, have been in that place before where you question decisions that you may have made. And thus was the state of mind of Ruth. In verse number 6 through 9, well, starting at verse 6, is when that she hears that bread has been provided in Bethlehem, Judah, the land that she was originally from. So she decides, I'm going to go back to my land. And she entreats in verses 6 through 9 of the first chapter of the book of Ruth. She entreats both of her daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. She entreats them to go back to their mothers and back to their people. And they would not leave her. She entreats them again in verses 10 through 13. This is the second entreat. And this is the part that I want to share because the latter clause of 13 is going to be our key verse. Verses 10 through 13 in the King James Bible reads as thus. And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. And Naomi said, Turn again, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say, I have hope, if I should have a husband also tonight, and should bear sons, would you tarry for them until they were grown? Would you stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it grieveth me much for your sakes, that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. So Naomi says, the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. And that is the decision she's made because of the pain that she's in and because of the situation that she's dealing with. She came to a conclusion that the hand of the Lord was against her. And we're not going to get into Ruth's entreat because we know as Orpah turned back at that particular time, Ruth didn't. And then that's when she says, go after your sister-in-law and go ahead. She's gone back to her people and her gods. And Ruth entreated her not to leave. Allow her to leave. Okay. Now, this is where we come to the crux, and we're going to have some good time. We're only 3 minutes and 38 seconds into it. To deal with it, okay, that bitterness is blinding. We've already dealt with part 1, which just deals with the history of her pain. We've dealt with part 2 and her entreating her daughter-in-laws to go back. And we understand her bitterness, and we hear her bitterness, and we hear her anger. And that second entreat, not even to mention the one where she was talking to Ruth when Ruth wouldn't leave. And then the scripture saying she left off from speaking to her. In other words, she just shut down. She was quiet, didn't have nothing else to say to her. She just went and Ruth followed. Okay? And I want to ask you a question. And you could tell me what you think. Let me know how you feel. But in that latter clause again of verse 13, Naomi says specifically, For it grieveth me much for your sakes, that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. The hand of the Lord is not gone out against Naomi. Okay. And even later on in the scriptures, and we'll get to that. We'll get to that. I'm jumping ahead of myself now. She changes her name to Mara, which means bitterness, when Naomi's name actually meant my pleasantness. So she changed her name from my pleasantness to bitterness. That was her decision and that was her call. Okay. But I want to ask you a question. Who was bitter? Was it the Lord that was bitter? Or was it Naomi that was bitter? Was it the Lord's hand against Naomi? Or was it Naomi's perception that the Lord's hand was against her? Therefore, she was bitter. Okay? Speaking of that, because we have a little bit of time now, have you ever tried to deal with someone who has a spirit of bitterness? Sometimes it's no matter what you do, it's the perception is going to be off, because like the scriptures say, they've allowed that root of bitterness to spring up in it and defile many other motives, other people's motives. Everything is challenged when you're bitter. And women, we have to deal with these core feelings and emotions and issues that we have, so we won't project bitterness, because to the pure, all things are pure. When you're looking through a pure motive and pure eyes. Now, I beg to say that none of us, including myself, are pure, free from fault. But because Christ is pure and we're in him, that is our purification. He is our purification. He is our cleansing agent that counts us pure. And we have to look at things always through the spiritual eye and not the natural eye or the emotional eye or the situational eye. What's going on in my life? Okay. Now, could it be, I wrote a couple of questions now, that the Lord in his infinite wisdom and knowledge, knowing that Ruth was going to lose her husband and her two sons, could that be one of the very reasons why they went to Moab to pick up her blessing? Yes, her blessing, Ruth, her blessing. Because Malion and Chilion's name both were interpreted sickly, with the exception of Chilion's name along with sickly meaning annihilation. So there were some things that may have been gone out that we don't know, and maybe some other scholars have studied it and have pulled some different things out, but we don't know the situation. Could it be that she was ordained to go to Moab? Could it be that the famine was in the land to drive her out to get that blessing that was going to preserve her in the midst of her roughest of time and restore the name of her husband and her household? Could it be that the Lord was sending them to Moab just for Ruth? But in her frustration, she was willing to let her blessing go. She was trying to send Ruth back. She tried 2 times. The second time, Orpah was like, yeah, I'm out of here. I feel you. But Ruth was like, your people are going to be my people. My God is going to be your God. And I'm staying with you. Okay. Don't take it personal. Maybe times may be a little bit rough. Maybe things may be going on in your life. But in every situation, this is what I do. I'm not saying I'm on the mountaintop every time and I'm jumping and shouting all the time and I never have a bad moment. But one thing I always strive to do is look through the eyes of God. And I try to find God in every situation. If something bad happens, I'm like, okay, because I know you said you'll never leave me or forsake me, and that you'll perfect those things concerning me. Somehow, rather it's brought up against me by the enemy, by my own foolishness, or by testing from you somehow. As the book of Romans says, all things work together for good to them that love God and to those who are the called according to his purpose. It didn't say it was going to feel good, but it works together for good. Okay, now we're going to just look at a couple of more things. But she was willing to let her blessing go. Don't let your blessing go. I don't care how it looks. I don't care what you don't understand. Hold on to God. Elder Chester preached a message before, Pit Bulls in the Pews, and he talked about the saints having to have the tenacity of the pit bull, the ability to lock on and to hold on, and regardless of the shaking, to not let go. We've got to hold on to God, hold on to his promises, hold on to his word, hold on to the things that he's already spoken in your life. And when rough times hit, Don't give up. Don't take it personal. Maybe he wants to use you. Maybe you're going to be like Job. We don't know. But just hold on and don't give up. After they were redeemed, and we know the story again because of what we went through last week concerning Ruth, the kinsman redeemer. And after Ruth was, I'm sorry, and they were redeemed by Boaz, through Ruth, of course. And because of that process, when Boaz took on Ruth, she had a son. And we're at the place now where Naomi has her son in her arms. Now, the son's name was given not by Ruth and not by Naomi and not even by Boaz, but it was given by the women of the town. And they called him Obed. And Obed was the father of Jesse, who was the father of King David. Through the lineage, those who birthed through their lineage our Savior, Jesus Christ. So great things come out of pain. Great things are birth. Let's look at his meekly and his lowly birth and even his walk and his ministry. Great things come out of pain. But you can't take it personal, ladies. Do not take it personal. Let's look at verse number 14 of chapter 4 real quick. Verse 14 of chapter 4. And I just want to show you something. And there is a point that I missed, and I want to put that in there real quick before our time runs out. When Naomi came to the town, when she and Ruth returned back to Bethlehem, Judah, the women of the town and the people of the town greeted them. They were happy to see Naomi. And they were saying, is this Naomi? They weren't like, is this Naomi? But they were happy to see her. And she went on a rant and said, don't call me that. But everybody came out to greet her. Again, I say, if you operate out of a spirit of bitterness, you can't even see somebody's true intentions. And I know because I deal with it, and I try to minister to some people, and because of their bitterness, they'll never really see the motive. They'll never really understand what I'm doing until God removes that bitterness, or rather they allow God to access and remove that bitterness. But the people loved Naomi. They loved Naomi and they embraced Ruth like a daughter. Okay, but let's look at what the women said to Ruth. And again, this is King James Version, and this is chapter 4 of Ruth and verse number 14. And the women said to Naomi, blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a close kinsman, and may his name be famous in Israel. And may he be to you as a restorer of life and a nourisher and a supporter in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loved you, who was better to you than 7 sons, hath borne him. And then Naomi took the child and laid him in her bosom and became his nurse. And her neighbor woman gave him a name, saying, a son is born to Naomi. They named him Obed. He was a father of Jesse, the father of David, the ancestor of Jesus Christ. And I read that out of the Amplified side. I'm sorry, you guys. But with time coming close to an end, just know, don't rename yourself. Don't walk around with a shroud of depression and darkness. I loose you right now from every spirit of oppression and depression. Everything that the enemy sends your way to come against your mind, you have to call your mind into order. You have to cast down every imagination and everything that would exalt itself against the knowledge of Christ. His word says you're healed. His word says you're free. His word says we have victory in him. So let's claim the victory. Rise up from your place of complacency. Don't let the enemy push you back in your mind, and know that God has your back. He has your back. He has blessed you. See him in your trouble. See him in your trial. He has already gone ahead and prepared a way for you, for he sees your end. Let's learn from Naomi and know that we are pleasant and beautiful, all of us, in the sight of the Lord. God bless you.